Come on, there we go.
Okay, there we go. All right, so sorry, we have a little technical thing. You always have to have a technical thing. Anyway, as I said, Warren picked a great selection of wines from Italy, and we just felt there's just so much in Italy. I mean, obviously, we're not even doing all of Italy in 3 sessions, so we decided to, break it down. And I know a lot of you have been to Italy, so we thought we'd do maybe some areas that maybe people haven't been to, a little bit different or a little bit more unusual experiences and things to see in these parts of the country. So, and so I partnered with Beth Rubin of Olive Tree Escapes, who I've used for itineraries, and Ira and Joe Beth. Beth did their itinerary, and it was Joe Beth's birthday. What was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think. And they were just saying it was exactly this time, and they had a fabulous time. And I've done some others, people who aren't on this itinerary. And it's been a pleasure working with
When
Beth.
she turned 60.
What?
No, stop.
2016.
Turned 60.
No, 50.
Oh, you didn't need to say that. That's TMI.
And not true.
But anyway, they had a great time, and fabulous farmhouse that Beth sourced for them. It was really, really great. But Beth has been in the travel business for over 20 years. And it started when she was on a semester abroad and in Italy, and just loved the country and traveled a lot, and just became an Italy expert, and decided to turn all her expertise and her secret little trips and tips and everything else into a fabulous business. And she created Olive Tree Escapes, which has won awards from Travel and Leisure magazine, and she's on the A list of top travel advisor awards. So that's pretty impressive. And she has a partner, Maya, who is Croatian and an expert from Croatia. So we have olive trees in both Croatia and Italy. So, and there's that close association between Italy and Croatia. So it makes all the sense of the world to kind of combine the two. And mentioning that, Beth is with us now from Zagreb, because she was there doing some research on hotels and experiences and destinations. And she'll be back. She's based out of Chicago, but she'll be back in Chicago next week. But she was kind enough to get up in the middle of the night to do the first one with us. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague and esteemed partner for Italy, Beth Rubin from Olive Tree Escapes. So take us to Piemonte, Beth.
Thanks, Sandy. Hi, everyone. Yes, I am in my hotel room in Zagreb. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I've smacked my face a couple of times, and I think I'm ready to go.
Okay.
I'm gonna share my screen, which might take a second, so just bear with me. Hang on a second. There we go. There we go. Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to spend an evening in Piemonte, as Sandy mentioned. Let's see here. That's me. And here's the map. So let's start here. So on your left, you see the boot of Italy with all its various 20 regions. And then if you look a little closer, you see Piemonte. So Piemonte is bordered by France and Switzerland, and then obviously the rest of Italy. It's in the northwest, and the capital is Torino, or Turin, as we say in the US, because we always Americanize everything. So Piemonte, or Piedmont, as we say, is the northwestern region that borders on France. I wanted to start first by kind of overviewing the things that you can do throughout the region, and then we're going to start with Turin just a little. I just want to give you a little overview, talk a little about it, show you some really pretty pictures so that you sort of picture yourself in the destination, and then I'll hand it over, obviously, and we can talk about the wines. So as as some of Sandy's clients can already attest to, we do lots of private walking tours. We do wine tours. We try to immerse you into the destination. You know, I don't want you to just check off a box. What we're trying to do, Sandy and I, is get you immersed and have an experiential travel experience. So we're going to talk about cafe culture, you know, visiting markets. Obviously, you're going to visit museums. That's going to happen in cities. But we really want you to sit down and eat and drink of the destination. That way you really feel like you're a part of it. Private wine tours that will explore boutique wineries. Barolo is like sort of the major wine of that area. They call it the king of wines, and they call Barbaresco the queen. And then there's Barbera, and there's Asti, and there's Nebbiolo, and all these other things. And you're going to taste a few of these this evening on the second half of this, on your wine tour. And like I said, you're going to hear more about that in depth on the second half of this this event this evening. And you know, I'm not going to lie, Piemonte, at least for me, is really all about the enogastronomic experience, the wine and the food. You can't find a region more rich in interesting food than this region. So cheeses, amazing cheeses, chocolate. Who doesn't like chocolate? Truffles. And I mean, yes, you can have the chocolate truffles, but we are talking about the mushroom truffles, and we're talking about the white truffle, the one that shows up in October to the end of December. So this is the region where you're going to get the best white truffles. And in fact, the white truffle fair is happening right now in the city of Alba. And it's just an amazing time. Fall is the best time to visit this region. You've got the harvest of the grapes, and, you know, and then, you know, the hazelnuts are coming off the trees. So you've got everything going on in this region as far as food and wine. You could dine off of it for years. Let's start in Torino. Look at this. Look at this city. This is amazing. This is obviously an aerial view, but Turin was originally the capital of Italy back when Italy was unified and became the Kingdom of Italy. So when Italy became a country of its own back in 1861, Turin was the capital. It was the capital for 4 years. And then they moved it down south to Florence and then to Rome. And we don't care about that right now. But Turin was the original capital of Italy. And it was also part of the House of Savoy. So it's got lots of French influence, as you can see. I mean, this town is very elegant. The last time I visited it, which was 2 years ago, I came from Milan, which you think of as, you know, the capital of fashion and style and all of that. And then I took a train, which was just an hour. And I walked out of the train station in Turin, and this is what you walk into, and it's unbelievable. Elegant is the only word I can think of to explain a city like this. And I don't want to say it's off the beaten path. It shouldn't be off the beaten path, but for Americans, it's absolutely off the beaten path. It's got so much going on. It's got cafe culture, it's got museums, it's got everything you could want in a city, and it's small, it's walkable, and it's not overcrowded with tourists. You might remember in 2006 they hosted the Winter Olympics here. So they hosted them, you know, in Torino, but obviously they were not skiing in this town. So we'll touch on that a little later, but it's an amazing town, an amazing capital. It's absolutely, if you've been to Rome, Florence, and Venice, you've done all that stuff, this is the place to go. They have, unbelievably, the most incredible Egyptian museum. It is the second best collection in the world outside of Cairo. So we're talking like seriously legit. They've totally rehabbed it. It's absolutely stunning. It's modern. They're doing work, archaeological work inside the museum. There was only so many slides I could show you, but I was able to look into a window and see work that they were doing on pieces, I guess, of tombs or whatever, you know, that they had pulled. So they're still in the modern day working on what they're finding in Egypt. So this museum is incredible. It's laid out really well. You could spend hours there, or you know, if you're not that interested, but you want to get a little taste, you can spend an hour there and be very happy. And like I said, there's a large cafe culture here. The coffee, obviously. You can see in this slide, which I wanted to show you, a lot of the town has arcades like this, you know, vaulted walkways because, you know, it's the north. And so in order to stay out of the rain, the king had this area built. So there's a large series of arcaded areas so you can walk and stay out of the elements and still see the beautiful town. And part of the cafe culture is that what is considered their most famous coffee, which is called the bicerine. And if you look closely at the cup, which is fabulous, you've got espresso, chocolate, and cream, and it's layered as such. So then,
Oops. Bethy, I think you froze. Oops.
and they have all these beautiful, beautiful cafes and tapestries, everything is, again, you go back to that word elegant. There's not another city in Italy like Turin. And they also, you know, every town has a market, but Turin actually has Italy, or not Italy, Europe's largest outdoor market. So here you see the men bartering with the eggs, but you're getting your fruits, you're getting your vegetables, and they have a section in fabulous. And then they have a section over to the other side that's all flowers. So the largest outdoor market in Europe is this one in Torino. Then there's also some off the beaten path things that you can do that you might not have thought of. Turin is actually where vermouth was born. So I've partnered up with some people that actually offer a situation where you can make your own vermouth. So you go and you spend an evening with this guy, the guy who's standing, and he's an expert on, I don't know if it's liqueurs, but let's just say liquors. I'm not a huge liquor person. I'm much more wine. But I've gone with him and I've done a gin making experience, but he does gin making, he does vermouth making, perfume making. And, you know, you sit there and as you can see in this photo, there's all these different tubes and vials and you get all these different essences and you make your own vermouth and then you can bring it home and it's made to your specifications. Personally, I made gin, which I can't stand as it turns out. But my niece loves gin. So I was able to make her this beautiful gin. And now she's, you know, she's got this tube and vial and she can make all of her gin drinks and she's super fancy. So that's something fun and interesting. And it's an evening activity. And you can also do activities like gelato making and obviously cooking classes and things like that. But this is something very specific to this area, which I think is interesting. You know, you go to a place and say, oh, wow, you know, you hear of, you know, vermouth and you, oh, it's from Turin. Oh, great. Oh, I can make my own. Awesome. And then I'm kind of still focusing on Turin a little bit. As you can see, this is a vineyard. And this is the Vigna della Regina, and that means it's the Queen's Vineyard. You can't even say just outside of town because it's still in the metropolis. This is an urban vineyard. It's one of the few that's left in Europe. And it's a vineyard that is literally built right there outside the city. And you can obviously see the whole downtown area right from there. We can go there. I've been there. I've met the man who took it over. It was completely trashed. It was destroyed, I want to say in World War II, but this man and his father took the time to actually rebuild this vineyard, to graft vines and make them viable again. And it is, I believe, I think at least in Italy, it's the only DOC wine from an urban vineyard, because there's an urban vineyard in Milan, Leonardo's vineyard, there's one or two in Venice, I think there's one in Siena, but the one in Turin is the only one that has the DOC wine stamp. And it's amazing. So you can go, and not only do they have the Queen's Vineyard here, but what you can't see is behind it is there's a villa as well. So you can visit the villa and, you know, look at the rooms and everything, and then wander out onto the vineyard. And then, of course, as we all like to do, go inside and do a tasting. And then the other thing that's just outside the outskirts of Turin that I wanted to show you before we go into the countryside is the Venaria Reale. This is really interesting. Again, this is another situation where it kind of got bombed, destroyed, left behind in ruins. And I remember, gosh, it was about 15, 16 years ago, they started talking about how they were going to renovate the Veneria Reale, and I didn't even know what that meant. What is this? And so it's this huge complex just outside, or maybe 20-25 minutes outside of town. And it's got this gorgeous building. You can see, look at this walkway. Look at this. This is the floor itself is incredible. The ceilings, all the Trump loyal, and they've turned it into a museum. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site now. And they completely redid the gardens in 2007, and they reopened it, and it was just absolutely amazing. Look at this place, and this is just outside the city. You can spend a full day here, no questions asked. It's amazing. The entrance to the museum is fascinating. They've really put a lot of thought and effort into it, and I was very impressed. And so I personally think you could do Piemonte alone as a trip. I know when we go to Italy, we're like, oh, I got to see everything. I got to go to Rome, Florence, and Venice, and I have 7 days. But what I think is you could go to Piedmont in 7 days, and spend 2-3 days in Turin, and then spend 4 days out in the countryside, going out and doing the vineyards and all of that stuff. So that leads us into our trip outside of the city. So like I mentioned earlier, one of the main leading wines in the area is the Barbaresco, the queen of wines. And then, this is one of my favorite pictures. So this is the Barolo Chapel. If you're looking at Sandy, I think you can see her as well. Barolo, the town, is right behind her. That's the Barolo Castle. Thanks, Sandy. So think of all these beautiful, rolling vineyards and hills. In the middle of all that is this chapel, which you can see like a beacon from everywhere. Look at it. It's so colorful and crazy. And this is on the Chiretto estate. And then they're a major player in the Barolo production. And they commissioned Sol LeWitt, the modern artist, Sol LeWitt and David Tremlett. And basically they said there was a chapel there, and it was also destroyed and in terrible shape. And over a glass of wine, the Chiretto, the winemaker, said to the artists, well, why don't you do something with this, and I'll pay you in wine. And so they did. Take a look at that. It's amazing. So the exterior is Sol LeWitt, the interior is David Tremlett, and the exterior right now is me and my sister hanging out at the end of November 2015. I took her on a trip. She'd never been up to that area, so we spent several days driving around and visiting vineyards and really digging into the area. Eating a lot of cheese. There's a lot of great cheese up in that area. And also there's a town, there's all, of course, there's all these charming little towns like anywhere in Italy. And one of my favorites is a town called Bra, just like it sounds, like brazier, but Bra. And it is amazing. And they're very well known for their cheese. And they've got a cheesemonger there. He's got a shop that is absolutely amazing. And what we can do for you is put you in there with the cheesemonger, and he will sit there and he'll let you taste all the cheeses, and he'll pull out incredible bottles of wine so that you can taste the wine and the cheese together. Absolutely fabulous experience. Last I heard, he's still looking for a wife if anyone's single. He's very charming. and it's just it's a one of a kind experience where you're just sitting with this man and tasting all the cheeses and drinking the wine, talking about food, which I personally love to talk about food. And then you can go down underneath and take a look at some of the cheese. And they'll talk to you about how it's made. If you're, it's as much as you want to know. As much as you want to know is the information that they'll give you. How it's made, how they puncture a hole in it to make sure that it's aging properly, all that good stuff. And then there's the two heroines of our story again, myself and my sister, on a truffle hunt. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, white truffles, it's like gold up in this area, and that you start hunting for them in October, and that goes until the end of December, I'd say. So you go out with a hunter, this man and his dog, and you spend the time. And this is not the simulated event that you might find in Tuscany. where they're planting them, you know, and then the dog knows exactly where to go. This is legit, and you're actually, you know, you're going to go, and sometimes you're not going to find something, which is sad. We were lucky enough to find truffles. So the dog found them, and we kind of watched. But it's really interesting. It's fascinating. They'll tell you all about the history, you know, and how truffles actually come from hazelnut trees, and who would have thought of that? You go out there and do that, and then when you're done, you get to there's your beautiful there's your beautiful truffles, and when you're done, you get to come back and taste them. So, and that can be any level. This obviously is a high level of cuisine, somewhere where, you know, we sat down and they shaved the truffles over this beautiful beef tartare. But, you know, you could be sitting in the truffle hunter's shack, you know, outside of his house with the dog, and he's shaving, you know, truffles over a little bit of cheese, you know, and you're drinking wine that might not be so great, but the experience is really amazing, you know, and you're in someone's private home. And that's exciting. Those are the types of things we like to put together for you, is these off the beaten path experiences where you're actually meeting the locals, you're trying things that they do, and then actually going into locals' homes, you know, going and cooking, learning, having a cooking class in someone's private apartment. You know, yeah, you can go to a big school and do that, and if that's what you're looking for, of course we can help. But what's more interesting, I think, and more memorable is going into someone's apartment, you know, going with them to the market, walking through the market and trying the various things that they offer, and then going back to her apartment, you know, and possibly even her family's there, you know, and you're cooking and making tagliarine, which is a special kind of pasta that you want to shave your truffles over, or pleen, which are these tiny little pinches of pasta that are filled with a little bit of meat and cheese, and they're absolutely amazing. Um, so that's the type of thing that we're trying to go for. Personalized experiences that you're not going to get anywhere else. So here we are, just so you can kind of see the scenery of the area. You know, and they call this the Langhe. That's Langhe. Langhe is the heavy wine area, Langhe and Roero. So you see these beautiful rolling hills. And that's where Sandy is. She's at a different angle than we are, but that is the city of Barolo and the castle, which is amazing.
There's that thing right there.
And these towns are amazing just to walk around. And obviously it's any sort of even amateur photographer's dream, especially in the fall. But I did want to let you know before we leave, that there are other things to do in Piemonte other than the wine area, and that is that they also have a couple of lakes, some of the bigger lakes. So this is Lake Orta, Lago di Orta. And these lakes have islands as well. So this is Orto San Giulio, which is beautiful. And look at this amazing little town. You have to take a boat to get there. And how cool is that? So to spend a couple of days. So again, so maybe we need more than 7 days in Piemonte. Maybe we need 9 days so that we have time to visit the lakes. And this is Lake Maggiore, and look at that. That's amazing. And Lake Maggiore has 3 little islands as well, and you can visit them, and they've got amazing gardens. There's a fisherman's island. There's Isola Bella. Amazing time. So maybe 10 days. Gosh, it seems like we're creeping up on 2 weeks. And I'll tell you what, if we go in the late fall, then we definitely need extra time so that we can go skiing. So like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, Torino was where they held the 2006 Winter Olympics. So this is one of the major points that they held that in. This is Sestriere. So there are all these different skiing towns, you know, just an hour outside of the city. You're at the base of the Alps here. So I know that Americans usually think that they don't need to leave the US to go skiing. You know, you can go to Colorado and you can go to Utah. But there is great skiing in Europe. And as it turns out, there's great skiing in the northwest of Italy. And even if you don't want to go skiing, this is great for hiking in the summertime. It's great for biking. I mean, these towns are very charming, and they're close to the slopes, but they're, you know, it's great for just wandering around if you like that sort of alpine style, more French alpine style because of the location. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. I think I have to stop sharing my screen, Sandy, if I want to see their questions, or are you gonna unmute
No,
them?
no, you can leave this up and we'll just,
Okay.
you know, if you want to, have a question for Beth, just unmute yourself. I don't know, can't find, let me see if I can find the unmute everybody, but if you have a question, any questions for Beth? Besides, when do we go? All right, no questions. Oh, wait, Michaela?
You talked about going in the fall and late fall when it snows. When is springtime there?
Oh, it's very similar to here. Well, I don't know where you are. But spring is, I've been there as early as end of March, and I was actually there in February. They got a little bit of snow. It's not, I mean, down in the city, it's just a little bit of snow. So if we're talking city and countryside, it's very, very like Midwestern, I would say, nicer than Chicago. I'm from Chicago, so I thought it was lovely in February there.
You would.
Any place in February is nicer than Chicago.
That's true.
That's true. Haven't you heard of Minnesota?
Wisconsin's bad.
This was great, Beth. This was really fabulous. And
Thank you.
okay, so I'll let you all in on a little secret about Piemonte. For those of you that are familiar with San Francisco restaurants, if you know the restaurant Perbacco, I had been talking with Umberto, the owner of Perbacco, pre-COVID. This was back in February, about doing a culinary tour with Umberto through Piemonte. And we were just about, and that was going to happen in 2021. And we were just about to start planning, and I was ready to call Beth. And we know what happened. The world fell apart. Umberto is still very excited and very interested, and we're going to talk about doing it in 2022, most likely the spring, because and Umberto has amazing connections with cheese people and this and that. So between Beth and Umberto and Warren, I mean, it is going to be an incredible trip. So for those of us who live in San Francisco, you know that indoor dining just happened, and Umberto just reopened the restaurant again. And so we need, but he actually emailed me just a couple of weeks ago and said, you know, I really want to get back and talking about that. So I know it's going to happen. So just stay tuned. But can you imagine going to Piemonte with Umberto on Warren's recommendations? And if Warren would join us, I mean, it would just be just a trip of a lifetime. You could never create it without having these people and their contacts to go through it. So we'll just kind of, you know, this is a secret, and you know, as soon as we have details, we'll let you know, but it'll probably be a couple months, you know, at least until we kind of get it together. But this is definitely in the works and will be an amazing trip. So don't go to Piemonte before you know about our trip. So any other questions before we turn this over to Warren? Okay, yeah, Perbacco is one of my favorite restaurants too, Judy. Okay, I have to say, this is my confession. I am not a white wine fan. I am loving this white wine. This is like amazing. So Warren, tell us, for that, we have a few new people, so let me give a little introduction to Warren. Warren is the owner and founder of Duvin, which is an amazing wine purveyor. Warren he decided to leave his high pressure corporate, you know, consulting company that he had and follow his passion for wine. And Warren is just knows, you know, I've called him the Wikipedia of wine. And he knows so much, but he's totally charming and wonderful. And through his company, he has an amazing palette and a wonderful sense of finding all these very unique, wonderful, different wines. I mean, we have just been, you know, enjoying the most amazing wines all along. And from this white wine now here in Italy, you know, I'm just really impressed and loving it. So Warren, tell us more about what we're drinking tonight.
Well, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate it. So nice to see a bunch of familiar faces. Some of you I've actually seen in person the last week or 10 days, or Connie has, as she's dropped off wine. Well, we're kicking off our Italy sojourn here over the next few weeks with a couple of really, really great wines. And Sandy, I could not be more pleased that you like the Brolia, the Gavi. This, has been one of my standout white wines since I started the business. In fact, the very, very first promotion I ever did when I started Duvan about 12 years ago, I did a mixed case of Italian wines, and one of the white wines was this Brolia Gavi, the La Merana. And it's interesting you say you love it, because this is a wine that I will often give to people who say, oh, I only drink California wine, or I don't like Italian wine, especially not Italian white wine. And the reason for that is they've probably never really had a good one. And this wine, and I think the reason it appeals to so many people who live in California, particularly here in the States, who are used to wines from Napa or Sonoma, which tend to be rich and creamy, but generally over oaked and too much vanilla, sort of like that Rombauer Chardonnay stuff, which to me is almost a manipulated and manufactured wine. But this Gavi has those same characteristics of warmth, but balanced with great acidity, so it works very well with food. It is a wine made from the Cortese grape, which is native to Piemonte. The commune of Gavi is in the southeastern corner of Piemonte on the border of Liguria, of the Lemme River. And it's very small and produces, together with Timoroso and Arneus, the typical, this is the third-legged stool of those three great white northern Italian wines from Piemonte. And it's just, it goes back a long, long time. I mean, the first mention of Gavi goes back almost 2,000 years to the first century BCE. Small family-owned winery, and quite small. I mean, they only make about 25,000 cases of this wine, many of which make it to California. And this is from the La Merana vineyard. It's a single vineyard plot. In fact, you know what I should do? Let me show you the La Merana plot. Let me share my screen here.
Should I stop sharing mine?
Yes, please. Yes, please,
I'm
Beth.
still sharing, because I want to show you, because this is characteristically important. Let me see here. Google share. Okay. All right. So that's the commune of Gavi. And you can see here, this is up in these hills. You can see obviously the Alps in the background there, and it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous place. But because of the influence of the soil there, you've got clay and marl, so you get the minerality from those old mountains, but you also get the warmth in the wine comes from the clay. Almost Burgundian-like in its characteristic. And I think that's why it's such a universally appealing wine. So Gavi di Gavi, and again, if you can find a single vineyard, is important. And if you look on the neck of the label, if you have the bottle, you'll see DOCG, which Beth was talking about DOC in the town of Turin. DOCG is the highest level, the Nozioni Originali Controllata Garantita. That's the highest level of quality in the standards of wine in the European Union and Italian and DOP in English, in French, but the DOCG in Italy is the highest level. So you should always look for single vineyards, look for DOCG whenever you're looking for wine. But this wine is gorgeous. I mean, have a look at that color. I mean, this golden straw and beautiful, just a lovely bouquet. It's very effluent in fruits. I get like white peach, stone fruits, just a beautiful, even some cantaloupe in it potentially. But it's got a little bit of citrus notes to it, but not like lemon or lime. I think more like a red grapefruit or pink or something like that. And just beautiful floral notes. Just a lovely, so, stick your nose in there, swirl it around, get those Let's take a sip. Just a gorgeous mouthfeel, very balanced. You know, it's got great fruit, great acidity, a very long finish. My goodness, it's still going. Ginger, I'll bet this is amazing with your tajarin pasta that you're making over there. So just a gorgeous wine, but you know, wine you can drink just by itself, as Sandy, I presume you're doing right now, but complements food very, very well, and just a very, very beautiful, fulfilling wines. And as I said, only about 300,000 bottles in this wine, and relatively low alcohol of 13%. I think another reason that many people like European wines is we're not pushing the limits in alcohol levels, kind of like the Chacalina that we had from northern Spain a few weeks ago, which I think that one's only 11% alcohol and somewhat effervescent. So that's the white wine. Anyone have any questions on the Gavi? No one? Anyone? I mean, look at the vineyard. That's the La Marena vineyard.
I have a question. Is this something you'd put in the cellar or you'd drink it out?
This wine I would drink, Stan. They do have a more elevated wine called Bruno Brolia. The Brolia family owns Brolia, and Bruno is, I think, the current owner, the grandfather. That one tends to age a little bit better. But it's interesting you say that, because I was sort of just going, I mean, I've got wine everywhere. Wine over there, there's wine over here, there's wine. I mean, there's wine everywhere in this place. It's all ridiculous. In the closet, there's wine. And I was going in to try and find something, and I pulled out a bottle, and it was a bottle of 2014 Brolia Gavi. I think we have the 2017 or 2018 with us here.
2018.
2018. It was a 2014. So obviously I just had an extra bottle, and I'm like, oh, let's try that. Opened it up, and it was gorgeous. So over the 4 years difference between this current release and that one, it had developed some tertiary characteristics. It was a little bit more nutty. It had greater essence of terroir. The citrus notes had dissipated a bit, and it was more of the stone fruit characteristics in the wine, but it was gorgeous. So, I mean, that's 4 years ago, so it's about a 6-year-old wine. I wouldn't be keeping it much beyond that, but it was lovely. But Gavi and Cortese will age, like Timoroso, it will age. And but I'd rather go for the Bruno Brolia, take a 6-pack of that and stick it away for 5, 6, 10 years and see how we do it.
Yeah, I like this very much. It's the first time I've had coffee. Thank you.
No, it's lovely. So we need to get you some of the Bruno Brolia. I mean, if you want to put some of the Bruno Brolia down for a few years' time, I'll introduce you to someone who can procure it for you.
I'm running out of years, Warren, so I'm happy to drink it.
You got to drink more, Stan.
Drink up. Next year they'll make more. Actually, it's interesting. One of the advantages we're having now in the sort of the slowdown, the tragedy that's befallen us with COVID, with the restaurant business and stuff, is there's a lot of wine that is becoming available that wineries and retailers and distributors are trying to move because they need to generate cash, because they don't have their standard, release outlets for a lot of wine. Corporate events, there's no holiday parties and things like that. So I'm beginning to find some older wines that are library collections with some of these wineries, or that distributors were holding back at premium prices, that are now being released. And not only are they better in terms of age to drink now, because they're several years old and they've developed, matured, and come into their own, but they're also pre-tariff from France and other places. So some of the French wines now, I mean, I just got my allocation of Domaine Laflave, which is one of the most renowned brands in all of Burgundy, and the Batard Montrachet is $1,010 bottle wholesale, my price, up about $300 from what it was a year ago. So it's yes, Brolia Gavi La Marena at $25-30 is a hell of a lot more palatable to drink. Well, actually not more palatable, more accessible and more reasonable on one's wallet than a Batard Montrachet from Domaine Laflave, which is a cathartic experience, but you need $1,500 to have that experience. So anyway, that's the Gavi. So now we're moving on to one of my favorite producers in all of Piemonte, and of course Piedmont for its red wines is world renowned. There are probably the two greatest grapes, the most renowned grapes in all of Italy are the Sangiovese from the Tuscany area and Nebbiolo from Piemonte. Now, this is not a Nebbiolo. I mean, there are generally, Nebbiolo and Dolcetto are the primary grapes, the primary red grapes that we find in Piemonte. And my friend Orlando Pecanino, one of the nicest guys you've ever met, he's in the hillsides around Monforte d'Alba. And he is recognized as he makes beautiful Barolos. I mean, from Busia, from Lacoste, absolutely beautiful, delicate, feminine, just gorgeous Barolo. But he is most renowned and is probably the premier producer of Dogliani, the Dolcetto grape in the southern part of Piemonte around Monforte d'Alba. And interestingly enough, when I said Broglio was a small winery, only producing 25,000 cases of the Gavi we were drinking, Orlando only produces 25,000 bottles of this particular Dogliani. So this is Siri di Germou, which is a single vineyard. It's only 4 hectares. It's tiny. So there's only 2,000 cases of this wine that is produced annually. And if 200 cases make it to the United States, it's a lot. And if 20 cases make it to California, it's a lot. So this is just not, it's not a wine you'll find that's ubiquitously available. I mean, have a look at that color. I mean, it is just pure ruby and deep and just a gorgeous wine. And the nose, it's just all that beautiful, intense black fruit, blackberries, cherries, just. And unlike Barolo, Dolcetto is a somewhat sweeter grape, almost like Merlot to Cab. So it's got that beautiful ripe fruit notes to it, but you'll notice in your mouth, still quite tannic. It's got great structure and great body. Just, I mean, you think about any classic Italian food, like a boar ragu or a tagliatelle with meat or ravioli or just anything, just a beautiful, beautiful wine with great length and tanning. And just, I think, for me, I wanted to do something a little bit different up in Piemonte and depart a little bit from Barolo. I mean, from Nebbiolo. So you've got Lange Nebbiolo and you've got Barolo and, of course, Barbaresco. And you were talking, Beth, about Ceretto, one of my favorite producers in Barbaresco, and just amazing. Got this amazing 3-star Michelin restaurant and a chapel there. And it's a bit of a Disneyland zoo over there. Orlando is very different. You go to Orlando and he walks you through, and he's got like 3 rooms you can stay in, and his daughter brings in the breakfast in the morning, and it's a whole different kind of experience. But don't discount Barolo. I mean, for me, the Canubi vineyard in Barolo produces the most sublime wines. I think, Sandy, you've heard me joke that if Canubi was a woman, I would divorce confident man. But if you find a Barolo from a Canubi vineyard, to me, that is just extraordinary. But Barbaresco too, I'm sure you've heard of Gaia, where the wines cost $400 or $500 a bottle. A few that I was offered in my warehouse. Got a lovely Magnum that I'm going to be drinking with some friends. Any of you, my friends? And but also in Barbaresco, there is a co-op, maybe the most famous co-op, wine co-op in the world, where all the farmers come together and they produce these wines called Produttori del Barbaresco, and it's right up the street from Gaia, and Aldo Vacca, who's now the CEO, 50 years ago started his 40 years ago started his career at Guy. He now runs Produttori, and they have all these single crews from around Barbaresco, Hoya, Rabaya, Monte Stefano, Montefico, etc. And they make the most sublime wines, but they don't charge $400 a bottle for them. They charge $75. Well, retail $75 a bottle. And I'm the only guy in California who year in, year out, when they make the single crews, and they only make them in the best years, I get a couple of cases of all 9 crews, and I only sell them as a collection of all 9. So that's another way to experience. And I mentioned this, Beth, because you talked about Barbaresco and the great wines, and Nebbiolo is just one of the most seductive grapes there is. And Dolcetto is another great Piemonte grape, like the Cortese and the Gavi we bring. So, expand horizons and go to Cortese, go to Arneus, go to Timorosa on the whites, and go beyond Nebbiolo and into Dolcetto on the reds, and expand horizons. There are just amazing. I mean, there's probably no better place in Italy for food and wine than Piemonte. The northern Italian cuisine and the complexity of the wines. Sangiovese's great, and Chianti's great, and Tuscany's great, and super. All these wines are great, but the subtlety and the delicacy and the feminine nature of Nebbiolo and Dolcetto up in Piemonte, it's almost like people migrate eventually from Bordeaux to Burgundy. Similarly, in Italy, you migrate from Sangiovese and Tuscany to Nebbiolo and Piemonte. So as you can tell, I don't like the wines from Piemonte at all. I don't like Piedmont at all. But I'm a big fan of the southern part of the It's small. I mean, from one end of Piemonte to the other, it's not like it's going to take you 8 days in a camel to get from one end to the other. I mean, from Monforte to Alba to Barbaresco is like a 25-minute drive. It's not the end of the world. And these beautiful little towns and great places to stay, and off the beaten track restaurants, and just the friendly nature of these individual winemakers, like Orlando Pecorino and the Broglia family, just makes the experience of drinking these great wines in situ just an experience not to be missed. And you're right, Beth, I did it by myself. I was at Italy last year, and then I went down to Piemonte for a few days and basically just drove around and visited all my friends and stopped in all these places. And okay, I'll go in there to eat. And there's no such thing as an English menu or an English speaking person, so you kind of figure it out. So they bring you something, and generally you like it. So it's just.
And I think that's the best way to do it. Not having an English menu. Even as someone who can understand the Italian menu, the idea of going there and not knowing, and letting the chef or the producers or whoever feed you, that's an amazing experience right there too.
And they are so amazing in Italy. I mean, look, I love France, and I can get along with the Frenchmen if I have to, but in Italy it's completely different. I was in the Veneto, and I went to this restaurant, and it was just amazing. I finished dinner, and they had to bring their college-aged daughter to the table from the house across to actually translate, because nobody in the entire restaurant spoke English, and I didn't understand what was on the menu. I mean, tagliatelle, I understand that, but all the other stuff they put in it, my God, I could have been eating deer ass for all I knew. So it's like, so bring the daughter. At the end of the night, I'm trying to order a taxi to go home, and the proprietor of the restaurant, this woman, she says, well, where are you going? And I told her, and she said, that's on my way. Come with me. I'll give you a ride home. And she took me to my hotel. I mean, imagine that happening in Manhattan. I'm sure Mario Batali is driving.
You wouldn't want to ride with Mario Batali.
Bad example. But
Yeah.
I'm sure that Michelin-starred chef in Paris is driving you back to.
Yeah, no
No worries. but those are the wonderful experiences. And when you have somebody like Beth and Warren who knows how to kind of, steer us in the right directions, this is what makes these trips so different than, just any off the shelf, ordinary kind of, Italy 101.
Right.
So it's really,
And I-
really
and I-
amazing.
Falls into, there's no such thing as going to Pecorino for an 11:15 to 11:45 tasting. It's
Right.
like, well, when are you free? It's like, I don't know. I'm just come in the morning. We'll show up there at 11, and at 6 o'clock, after food and wine and everything, you'll be like, okay, let me take you into town to my friend's restaurant. We don't have dinner. I mean, these are their homes, and this is their life, and it's just an extraordinary experience. So you're right, Sandy. When you have these relationships and these connections, it's a completely different story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what we do. We get you the insider's trip, the insider's, experience, that you just can't get anywhere else. So Warren, we're coming up to Thanksgiving. Are any of these wines appropriate for Thanksgiving?
Actually, yes. In fact, Italian wines are very, very good for Thanksgiving. I think this Dolcetto would be really good because it's got the sweetness to balance out all the savory sides that we have at Thanksgiving, but it's also got enough tannin to cut through the turkey. I mean, I think the Gavi, just like a white Burgundy, like a Merceau, would go very, very well with turkey. I don't know that I necessarily do a Barolo. Maybe a little bit delicate and could get overwhelmed. But I also wouldn't go with big, bold wines for Thanksgiving, like Cabernet Sauvignon and California Chardonnay. To me, don't work. In fact, Ginger wrote in a text about the wines we tasted a long time ago from Fritz Wieninger in Vienna, in the Vienna Hills. Those wines would be terrific, like a Gemischte Satz. So, lighter, fruitier wines that have a broad spectrum of flavors that allow it to be compatible with that total smorgasbord of different flavors, from the gravy to the yams to the turkey to the cranberry. It's not the easiest combination. So my default suggestion for Thanksgiving is not pick a red and a white wine, pick 6 wines. You have to have champagne. Champagne goes with pretty much everything. And great white like this Gavi, a great Dolcetto like this Dogliani. You certainly want to have a sweet wine for dessert. What's great with pumpkin pie is a nice Sauterne or a Vinsanto or a Passito from Italy or something like that. So my suggestion with Thanksgiving is go bold, go deep, go broad, and have at least 4, have a couple of different whites, certainly have a sparkling wine, have a couple of different reds, and a dessert wine or a sweet wine.
Well, I'm going back east for Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to have you put an order together to ship to my family, so we make sure we have some decent wines. And maybe you can put together like a Thanksgiving, suggestion selection or something. If people,
I'd be happy to do that, Sandy. In fact, every year I kind of put together a Thanksgiving 6-pack that I recommend of wines I've discovered through the year that I enjoy, that I think would be compatible with the meal, and I'd be happy to ship a 6-pack or a 12-pack out there for you to enjoy.
All right. Well, we'll take that conversation offline.
Well, that's where we are. So next week are we going to be in Tuscany or Sicily next week, Sandy?
Tuscany, right?
Yeah,
Tuscany.
the Tuscany, the wines we have are amazing. In fact, they're wines that I've used with a couple of other of your colleagues, Sandy. I think, I'm not sure, Joan, if we use it for yours or Lisa, but we have a beautiful white wine from Vernaccia di San Gimignano. We'll talk about the town of San Gimignano. And the Vernaccia is just a beautiful, fresh, fragrant white wine from the hills of Tuscany. And then, of course, we have a classic. We have a Chianti Classico, Nebbiolo grape from a small producer, Gaglioli, which I was able to source some older vintages of that wine. So I think you're really going to enjoy Tuscany next week, which, of course, is an amazing, amazing, amazing place.
Great. So any questions for Warren or Beth? Okay, so I'm just going to say next week, same time, same place. I'll be sending an invitation, except we're going to Tuscany next week, which will be fabulous. And I know many of you have been there, but I'm sure there's going to be some interesting different little aspects of Tuscany that you may not have seen before. And if any of you are interested in the Bordeaux and north of Spain, Bilbao and San Sebastian, and then the 2 nights in the Loire Valley afterwards on the Bordeaux cruise, shoot me an email. I think Kevin and Mary were interested. I will send you some information. Again, that's November 2021. And if you book by the end of this month, AMA has a great promotion. Either you get $750 per person off the cabin, or 1 free economy air, or a business at $299.9. But the reality is the $750 is the best deal because airfares are really low right now, and you can do better than that. So, I mean, you'd get $1,500 off the cost of a cabin, which is pretty amazing. And I'll send you the video to watch. And if you watch the video, you get another $100 per person. So it's $850 a person off for the cabin. And all you need to do is put a $400 per person deposit down. So if you're interested, it's going to be great. I've booked my cabin. There's a couple of other people who booked cabins. It's actually a wine themed cruise. So we have a winemaker from and winery owner from the Willamette Valley who's going to be be the wine host on it. So he's going to be bringing his Pinots. So we're going to be able to drink Oregon Pinots compared with French wine, and it'll be very, very interesting and very, very great. Space is a little limited because he was taking his wine club this November and they had to move it to November 2021, but there's still space available and it's a fabulous deal. So email me, we'll get you the information, and it's going to be really fabulous. So any other questions or anything? All right, we'll see you next week. We'll be in Tuscany. Beth, go to sleep. It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
All right,
night.
everybody. Great to see you. And we'll see you next week. Take care. Stay healthy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.